Peter, what a just a lovely, just really beautiful, simple, and elegant approach, and yet, I mean, just kind of looking ahead, how you continued on into the C section. That was actually my favorite part right in there. I wish that I could have I could have gone on to evaluate more and more. But yeah, I really enjoyed this, and let's having said that, I will just talk about how here at the beginning, I think you need to focus a little bit more on the transitions into sections and also contrasts between orchestration styles, possibly bringing more meaning into the musical material, right? Because I feel that this approach that you lay down here is just quite a long time to be going on with this, right? It sort of doesn't really change, and then here all of a sudden things become incredibly dense and weighty, right? Especially like A2 bassoons and then a contrabassoon below, and everybody's sort of walking down, and then you have this profoundly low E, right? But there's no setup to this. We're just suddenly are there, right? And I'm wondering whether or not you could have tried something, tried an approach where the music starts to move things around a little bit and kind of change, like the melody starts to change somewhat in character. I'm wondering whether or not there could have been some change of texture that would lead forward into this rather than it being so abrupt, right? So that it would feel smoothly connected, because after all, everything is incredibly smooth here, isn't it? Now, of course, if you've been following some of the other evaluations, you'll probably notice certain objections I might have to just putting a slur over some repeated wind notes. Very much kind of in the style of the piano slurs, kind of more or less just dropping the piano slurs onto most everything except for maybe a little change here and there. So yeah, I think that some of those things could use a little bit of work. I think that you need to define what crescendo means, right? Crescendo, diminuendo. How big are you getting? What's the destination dynamic? It's not enough just to use what's in the score. And then diminuendo here for some instruments, but not others. What is the dynamic here at the end? Right? All those questions need to be answered before this could go to the stands, I think. And I would want to adjust, adjust how this is played. Sure, you see slurs over repeated notes all the time, but I mean, I just think that takes away the decision of the orchestrator on how you want to articulate this, right? Because there might be any number of ways that the player decides to do it. Rather, like a legato tongue, do it as like a sort of a portato, where you're using the stomach to do the articulation. There are a bunch of ways of interpreting how to do that. Why leave it up to the performer, right? And why sort of show what kind of a, like maybe a lack of focus on that, right? Like, why not like bring like your wonderful sense of taste and proportion and everything, and make that essence of craft be a part of like these finer details, right? Is what I'm saying. So anyway, next page. Like, I can tell that this evaluation is going to be a bit briefer, just because there's like fixing things. Like, I mean, you have really thought of a lot of things to fix, and have taken a fairly straightforward approach. So what how much is there really to fix, and so on. All right, so harp right in here. All right, so let's talk a little bit about harp, and let's talk a little bit about Sibelius. All right, so the harpist is not going to want a dynamic under their left hand. Just like a pianist, they're going to want it right in the middle. And since this is Sibelius and you want this piano dynamic to apply to both staves, then just do this little trick of Option or Alt 5. Okay, that's the keyboard shortcut. So since this is light blue now, when you click on it, that means that it will apply to both staves. And then here, same thing, Option or Alt 5. All right, now the problem here is that I really feel like if you are going to score the harp right on top of the string pitches, that it really will get buried. Like the part about the essence of what harp is all about, that sort of beautiful glittering kind of a sound, will have less meaning. We'll just sort of hear these little punctuating pitches in the background, right? And we don't want that. We want the harp to sound glorious. So you just really are going to have to mark this up to mezzo forte or mezzo piano at the softest. And I also feel that, like, in these first 4 bars, you could have had nuances that leaned into it. Da, 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 da. And then maybe start the next one just right on this note. Da, 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 da. Yeah, it doesn't have to be very big, just like little hairpins, crescendo and diminuendo hairpins, but just enough to sort of give the melodic arc a little bit more flavor. And I would also just sort of continue to be a little bit picky about this. I mean, even though this isn't the slowest piece in the world, it is just slower, and there is less. There's less of the ability of the player to really have any kind of have a greater degree of control over the character and quality of the pitches when the bow stroke is so long. Right? Why can't this go down, up, down, up, down, up, down, right? Then up, down, right? It just feels more right to me. Like it's just for the bow to that way the bows can be shorter. They can have there just can be more going on in them. Like here you're giving nice short bows, but here I would say some of the pitches of the are incorporated into the middle voices is something that was in the Pitfalls video. I don't know if you had a chance to watch that, but I thought it was a pretty important thing. But some of the pitches that are in this could be incorporated in the cello part to keep the flow more even, right? Rather than having to sort of have this stop and start kind of thing, da, da, and once again we've got repeated notes under a slur, da, da, and then couldn't it be maybe have the E here, da, and then here have maybe this D right in here, then D. I just feel that it would make it stronger rather than all of these kind of just interruptions to the flow that we see here. There's really beautiful flow later on, and see here you're thinking about up bows and down bows, right? So down bow, up bow, down bow, up bow, and I mean it's more or less workable. But all the more reason for the harp to be louder. And also, I would put roll marks on these. Just don't lose that. I mean, because if you just have them non-arpeggiando, then they're basically just. It's almost like adding a little bit of pizzicato to the pitches here, right? So the roll brings out the character of the harp more, and if you don't mark it, the harpist is going to add it anyways, right? But all right. Now, once again, I feel like just the sudden jolt here of adding all of the winds could the winds have insinuated themselves into the texture a little bit more gradually, so that the color, by the time the color came out here, would just be like a ray of sunshine, just very just opening out as the clouds parted, right? Rather than just like bam, like a spotlight in your face, right? But of course, like maybe that was your intention. So I mean, and that I can't critique, but yeah, just it seems to me like this. Like the addition of these winds could have been a little bit more, could have been a little less jarring. Or even you could have come in with the winds here, like at pianissimo or triple P, and then pushed forward into the next phrase, right? So it's just some things to think about. I do like the a lot of the things that you added on to this. Like this harp line and so on. That's just really fun. Really cool stuff. All right, and then right in here, essentially more or less doubling of the strings and the winds. Now here, of course, you probably have heard me say this before, that the approach here should just always be this, right? There's absolutely no need for there to be a up arrow unless there is an adjacent down arrow, right? And I'll totally accept the fact that you put these chords all in one staff, because I mean that's the way to get the Sibelius playback to play a roll across two hands, right? Across what would normally be in two different staves. So that's all fine. And yeah, just cool, like the little contrary motion right in here of the harp figuration. It was very, very nice. Yeah, but once again, elegantly simple. All right, now you probably noticed listening to this again, Peter, if you listen to your own mock-up, that like the harp is just pretty much invisible, right? So all the more reason, like since just jumping up here, like you're saying piano and then mezzo forte here, mezzo forte with everybody else. Then like here, like if the harp isn't marked up to forte, then it's really going to disappear. And the other problem too is that you have this figuration right in the same range as the winds and strings, right? So if you want it to stand out, I would say have it up an octave. Right? Just have it glisten above all of these very rich pitches, and it has more of a chance of coming out. And you could even move these rolls up an octave, right? There definitely is room for them up there. I mean, you could take this roll even up another octave. All right, now right in here, I'm noticing that you are missing, like with the whole figuration, you're missing some notes, and I'm wondering if like you had intended to put them in bass clarinet or maybe clarinet or something, and you got distracted and you forgot to put them in, or English horn. And because it seems like I just really feel the interruption, you're going da da da, and then suddenly dee 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 dee, there's like this little response. So, and then here you have the continuation onwards. And I just really feel that just this kind of, once again, a sort of a jolt, right, of the transition. Now, another thing that I would consider a little jolty would be like the fact that there's no diminuendo here in the strings and the winds, right? So like the bassoon, this poor lone bassoon player is going to have to play over, like the strength of its sort of the beautiful roundness of tone and everything is going to get swallowed up by these rich overhanging pitches. Just out of curiosity. Yeah, I mean, your violist can read this. They don't need that treble clef there. Though I mean, it can be helpful. So yeah. So I mean, I would say if you threw in a diminuendo here, right, and then had your bassoonist play into it, but then that's sort of like once again with nothing leading up to it, we still have this just this big wind trio, wind sextet really, when you consider that they're all A2. I feel that having them play A2, you just really have less of a character of, you get less character from each of your wind companions, right? So your clarinets are going to sound phased, your oboes are going to sound very kind of hard and trumpet-like, and your flutes are going to have that sort of weird kind of mystery sound, right? That kind of also a little phased, similar to a clarinet, but just with having that kind of, it seems to me like when you double really exposed clarinets like this, there's the sound of the breath becomes really prominent, in addition to the tone. All right, and then continuing on, we have some similar things, and then right here, like, once again, I would sort of wonder about contrast, right? Like we've had the winds rising, and then coming back down, winds rising, and then coming down, back down. Could another instrument have taken this over? Maybe like a solo violin or some other quality of tone to create a bit of a contrast with what happened before. Essentially, I mean, these are going to be solos. There's almost no need to write the word solo over them because there's nothing else happening, right? They're completely unaccompanied at that point. So they will play as much as they need to. It's also there's a slight contradiction in markings here, right? Solo, right, which is more or less an indication of the player to sort of play out over, to be the featured voice, right next to a full bars diminuendo, right? So, I mean, essentially, like the tone of the instrument should become more intimate and familiar and everything else, right? But at the same time, it is a duo between these two instruments, with the flute going down into its weakest register against the oboe going down into its strongest register, and that will be very difficult for the players to balance all the way through. So you set some traps here and some other kinds of things, and a lot of them could be sort of easily fixed by just having the strings take over right in here, which would, like solo strings. Imagine if this were a solo violin, right? And then you just added a second solo, like, so you just had that interesting quality of the two violins playing unison and so on. Or just had a single solo violin going all the way through. But just something to sort of contrast, right? Anyway, and also, like, right in here, I would also want the strings to, after adding a diminuendo here, I would want them to come in like maybe piano, right? Including the pizzicato here, so that the strings wouldn't interfere so much with their resonance kind of hanging over everything. And then also, when they came to an end, it wouldn't be so abrupt, right? So I just feel like these rests, these bars of rests right in here, just feel abrupt with the dynamic marking as scored, right? So I mean, a lot of this you're probably listening to me say, and you're thinking, oh, geez, I was gonna do that, and I left out this transition I was going to put in there, and I left out a few notes there. I was going to do that. Oh, yeah, you're right, Thomas, or you're wrong, Thomas. I think it sounds fine, and that's perfectly fair, too. But I mean, considering, like, you put so much work into this, like the C section and the D section, oh, it's just really lovely, right? Going on, just all this really strong stuff. So, if you're going to put this much work into it, like, I would really love next time to, and then there's this lovely ending. Yeah, I mean, I would really love to be able to evaluate the whole darn thing. So think about that maybe. And like the next, I'm not so sure if the next three things are going to be up your alley, but wow, I would love it if you participated in all of them. So I mean, it might totally appeal to you actually. So we'll just have to see when those are announced next year. But the first of those. But I mean, thanks for sending me such a cool score, and just like the, I love the simplicity of it. I love the directness of it. But just kind of thinking like there's a way I think of bringing some more of that wonderful craft that you have into this, in terms of thinking of the proportions and the and a little bit of the linear architecture, right? And sort of thinking about certain problems like the resonance of instruments over the top like say a solo bassoon or a solo bass clarinet or something like that, kind of swallowing up the character, and the harp being too soft and too low, right? I mean, a lot of times, like, all you have to do is just jump a harp part up an octave, and suddenly you don't have to do anything to it. It's really audible. But when it's covering the same pitches as the rest of the orchestra, then you have to like boost its dynamics and maybe have it play octaves, and you have to do things to make it come out more, right? So anyway, I will just thank you for this, Peter, and just say it's just so cool to get a score from you again. And like you are a familiar quantity. You're becoming a familiar quantity to these orchestration challenges, and wow, it's just so great to have that sense of continuity from so many awesome orchestrators and musicians, and bringing their perspectives into this. So thanks so much for that, and for supporting on Patreon, and thanks to everybody out there who's watching this. Any feedback for Peter, just drop it in the comments below, and if you have some time, by the time you watch this, I may have released the next evaluation. I'm doing a lot of these in advance right now, so I'm not sure what order they'll be released, but the next one is also going to be really, really cool, and it will be the last of the semi-brev evaluations, so don't miss that, all right? Hope to see you in that one, and thanks everybody. See you really soon.